There are moments in life when all you want to do is stand up, walk away, and never look back. For me, that moment came on a sweltering summer afternoon, right in the middle of what was supposed to be a harmless family party. In less than an hour, I was accused of nearly letting a child drown, cursed out over a phone, and had my patience wrung out like a filthy wet rag. I knew my sisters could be unreasonable, but I never imagined they could be this drunk and vicious. And the worst part? It was only the beginning. My name is Ella. I'm 35 years old, living with my husband Nathan, in a small town in Northern California. We don't have kids, we both work in finance, and we enjoy a quiet life. Far from unnecessary noise. That means we rarely get involved in the family gatherings my two older sisters, Becky and Lauren, often organize with help from their loud and tactless husbands. To be honest, I've never been close with Becky and Lauren. They're 6 and 8 years older than me, with 3 and 4 kids respectively. In their eyes, Nathan and I not having children is selfish, against tradition, and weird. And every time we gather, they never miss a chance to flaunt their superiority in terms of being tired, messy, and busy as moms. Last Saturday, my parents hosted an early 4th of July BBQ at their house, a place with a pool located just outside the suburbs of Fresno. Nathan and I initially declined, but my mom called several times, giving all kinds of reasons like, family needs to stick together, and your dad misses you, then turned to pleading with Nathan to bring some good energy. In the end, because he's the soft-hearted one, we agreed. When we arrived, there were at least 4 SUVs parked tightly by the gate, and the sound of screaming children from the backyard echoed like a mini riot. I sighed. Nathan gave my hand a gentle squeeze, as if to remind me, just a few hours, you can do this. In the yard, over 20 people gathered around the grill, the food table, and the pool. Becky and Lauren already had flushed cheeks from alcohol, each holding a cocktail and laughing loudly with their husbands like it was spring break in Cancun. The kids, ages 6 to 12, were running wild like someone had tossed out the safety rules and handed out free sugar from the bakery. My mom was scrambling, trying to grill while also wrangling the grandkids, while my dad, the only one still sober, sat quietly in the hot tub, headphones in, eyes avoiding the chaos. Less than 30 minutes after we arrived, something unexpected happened. 3 kids, 2 of Becky's and 1 of Lauren's, ran toward a guest named Sharon who was standing near the pool. They screamed, "Water gun!" and shoved her straight into the water. Luckily, Sharon was on the steps leading into the pool, so she only got half soaked, but she slipped and almost hit her head on the edge. Sharon's face turned pale. She said nothing, quietly climbed out, grabbed a towel and left the party. I heard my mom mumble, "Oh dear," while Becky laughed, "Just a joke, kids being kids." I was about to say something but Nathan squeezed my hand again, as if to say, "Don't get involved." I nodded. I tried to ignore it and chatted with one of my parents' neighbors, but the next disaster came sooner than expected. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw 3 other kids, 2 10-year-olds and an 8-year-old, eyeing me like they were playing a hunting game. Before I could react, they shouted, "Ella, it's your turn!" and charged at me. I jumped to the side instinctively, and the 3 of them flew straight into the pool like live cannonballs. There was a splash, some screaming, and then an eerie silence. One kid surfaced, clinging to the side of the pool, coughing violently. Another thrashed in the middle of the pool, clearly unable to swim. Nathan immediately jumped in to pull out 2 of them, while my mom saved the 3rd just in time. But instead of thanks or apologies, Becky and Lauren, still drunk, turned on me, yelling, "Ella, are you insane? Why didn't you stop them? You were standing there laughing, weren't you? They almost drowned." I glared at them. "Are you kidding me? I got out of the way." "If I hadn't, I'd be the one falling in. Who's supposed to be watching the kids?" Nathan stepped up. "We're not babysitters. Those kids are yours. You need to take responsibility." But reason couldn't cut through alcohol and bruised egos. A shouting match broke out, with crying kids, my mom yelling over Becky's curses. Finally, when one of the brothers-in-law, so drunk he could barely stand, stumbled over to have a man-to-man talk with Nathan, I made it clear. Word for word. Which is way worse than what I went through with you. We're leaving. If anyone wants to burn with this mess, be my guest. I grabbed Nathan's hand and walked away, leaving behind yelling, tears, and a family party turned summer nightmare. I thought that after the chaos, things would settle down. But no. I underestimated Becky and Lauren's shamelessness. And especially the nerve of their husbands. The next morning, as I was making my first cup of coffee, my phone buzzed non-stop like there was a fire. The first message was from Becky. Ella, the kids recorded that water shoving game yesterday on their iPhone and now it's broken from falling into the pool. I think you should pay for it. I frowned, still half asleep. The next message came from Lauren, even bolder. Each one is an iPhone 14 Pro Max which I just bought last month, nearly $1,200 each. You can't just step aside and let the kids fall into the water and then wash your hands of it, do you understand? It's your responsibility to stop that from happening. I put the phone down on the table, as if it had just exploded in my hands. Nathan walked out from the kitchen, saw my expression, and quietly asked, "What's going on now?" I handed him the phone. He read a few lines, then looked at me with a half-angry, half-powerless look. "Are you kidding me? Do they really think you're some kind of accident insurance for these stupid kids?" I didn't answer right away. Part of me wanted to stay silent and let things cool down on their own. But then the third message came, this time from Becky's husband, Derek. "Ella, don't make this awkward. You know you're wrong. 2 broken phones aren't a big deal for you. If you transfer the money soon, we can keep things cordial." A cordial? The only thing left after that party was the smell of cheap alcohol and stupid arrogance. I opened the new message and typed each word, with my hands trembling from anger. "I'm not a babysitter. I'm not an ATM for your stupid games. I'm not responsible for phones you can't even take care of. And from now on, I don't want to be involved with any of you anymore." I hit send. Then, I blocked Becky, Lauren, Derek, and Paul, Lauren's husband, on everything, including social media. I didn't want to see anything from them again, not even a like, or a picture of cold, dry roasted chicken. My mom called that afternoon, her voice full of concern. "Ella, I know you're angry. But that was an accident." I interrupted. "Mom, I'm not angry. I'm tired. Tired of always being the nice one in a family where I'm just the emotional punching bag. The kids aren't taught, the adults are drunk, and then they blame others. And now, I'm being asked to pay like I'm some walking ATM. But," my mom hesitated. "The phones are expensive. Becky says they're valuable to the kids. If they're valuable, they should be taking care of them. Don't let the kids run around like crazy, then ask someone else to pay." Silence. I heard my dad muttering something in the background. My mom sighed. "Fine, I understand. But your dad and I still hope you'll come to the house. Don't let the sisterhood fall apart like this." "Mom, the sisterhood didn't fall apart because of me. It rotted from the moment I was the youngest, forced to share candy, give up toys, and bear all the blame for 2 sisters who never made mistakes. I've put up with enough." I ended the call. That evening, under the soft yellow light, Nathan handed me a glass of white wine and didn't say anything. He just sat next to me, quietly. That silence was more comforting than 1,000 fake reassurances from family. We watched a movie, ate some toast, and then silently went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. In my mind, I kept hearing Becky call me selfish in her last message before I blocked her. They really thought I'd just bite my tongue and pay, like I had done, for all those years before. I remembered the times they made me pick up the dinner bills because she has 4 kids, I only have 2. The trips where I had to rent a big car because her small car can't fit. The birthday gifts I gave the kids, always criticized for not being meaningful enough. And now, they wanted me to pay for their carelessness again. No. This time, I wasn't backing down. I wasn't paying for the phones. I wouldn't cave in to their shameless demands. And I wasn't going to be, Ella, the easy one, anymore. The next morning, I sent a brief email to my parents. I need some time to myself. Please don't send any messages or call. When I'm ready, I'll reach out. I hit send. My eyes burned, but my heart felt lighter. Because for the first time in my life, I stepped out of the cycle of guilt they had trapped me in. And I had never felt freedom like this before. 3 days after the text and phone battle, I thought everything was really over. I didn't reach out to anyone, not Becky, not Lauren, not my parents. I didn't want to hear another word about reconciliation or family unity. Nathan and I even planned to leave town next weekend, to temporarily escape the mess called family. But then, on Tuesday morning, as I was getting ready for work, my mom called. I almost didn't pick up, but then my hand instinctively hit the button to accept the call. Ella, can you come by the house tonight? What's going on, Mom? Your dad and we want to talk to you, and Becky, Lauren will be there too. I nearly dropped my car keys on the floor. You want me to sit across from the 2 people who just asked me to pay over $2,000 for their mistakes, and who called me selfish? My mom was silent for a few seconds. I know that was outrageous. But your dad and I are tired too. We need to end this once and for all. Just come. And if you don't like it, you can leave at any time, I promise. I sighed. All right. But I won't back down to please anyone anymore. That evening, when Nathan and I arrived, the atmosphere in my parents' house was as heavy as the calm before a storm. Becky and Lauren were huddled on the couch, their eyes darting around, holding hot cups of tea, like they were clinging to the last bit of their remaining morals. Derek and Paul weren't there. At least this meeting wouldn't be interrupted by their man-to-man talks. My dad stood up, his voice deeper and more tired than usual. Everyone sit down. Today we need to make some things clear. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. Nathan sat next to me, silent like a cold rock. Becky, Lauren, my dad looked straight at them, you 2 crossed the line. Demanding Ella pay for phones because of your kid's dangerous antics? And insulting her on top of that? Unacceptable. Becky started to speak, but my mom raised her hand to stop her. This is not the time for excuses. I read the messages you sent Ella, and I felt ashamed for you. Lauren lowered her head. Becky still tried to keep a straight face. My dad continued. From now on, your mother and I are setting some new rules. If you want to keep attending family gatherings, you have to show mutual respect. No demands, no emotional manipulation, no using the word family to control others. He turned to me. Ella, you have the right to protect yourself. From now on, no one is allowed at the mountain cabin unless you've given clear permission. I gave a small nod. Inside, a strange feeling stirred. Part relief, part bitter. And, my dad said firmly, if anyone crosses the line, your mom and I will side with the person who was disrespected. Family doesn't mean you get to walk all over each other. Becky threw a sharp look my way and said, so because of a couple of phones, I'm being treated like an outsider? I sat up straight, my voice cold as steel. It's not about the phones. It's about how you've never owned up to anything, never taken responsibility. Well, I'm done. From now on, every favor comes with clear boundaries. Lauren spoke softly. I know this went too far. But Ella, I don't want to lose my sister. I looked at her and for the first time saw a hint of real regret. Well, you didn't lose me. I just won't be the weak Ella anymore. The next morning I drove up to the cabin near Lake Arrowhead. It was a place I'd bought 3 years ago, fully in my name but had let my parents use as they wished. A peaceful retreat among pine trees, with a porch facing the valley and a storage room big enough for the whole family if needed. I got out of the car, walked through the large wooden gate, and locked it behind me. The old padlock had been replaced with a modern digital code lock. I entered a new code. One only Nathan and I knew. The old one, set by my mom using the birthdays of the 3 sisters, was permanently deleted from the system. I walked around the cabin, checking all the doors. Everything looked fine, but I still wasn't at ease. I called a locksmith to change the front door code and both secondary locks, then ordered a security camera to be installed at the entrance. Not because I was afraid of thieves. I was afraid of family. On the way home, Nathan asked, "Do you regret it?" I shook my head. I don't regret giving my parents a place to relax. But from now on, if anyone wants to use it, they need to understand that this is my house. Not a public lodge, not a place to exploit, and never a place to insult the owner. Nathan chuckled. Sounds like a lawyer reading a sworn statement. I smiled faintly. For the first time in years, I felt like I was finally in control of my life. Not living under guilt or tied to toxic family obligations. I knew this wasn't the end. I knew people like Becky and Derek wouldn't let go so easily. But this time, I was ready for whatever they were planning to throw. And I swear, I won't take a single step back. I never thought things could get worse after that family intervention. But then the truth came out. Bare, filthy, and bitter enough to make me wonder whether to laugh bitterly or scream in rage. I got a call from my mom on Saturday morning, just as I was sitting on the balcony reading. Her voice was shaking. Not with emotion, but with anger. "Ella, do you know that Becky has been renting out the cabin for the past 3 years?" I shot up like someone had splashed ice water in my face. "What are you talking about, Mom?" "Your dad just found out yesterday. A neighbor next to the cabin, Mr. Gerald called him, said he sees strangers coming and going every week. He said they mentioned booking through something called Becky's Cozy Cabin on a vacation rental app." "Becky's, what?" "The cabin you bought for us. It's being advertised as Becky's cabin. And there are hundreds of glowing reviews. With photos of everything, inside and out. Even the private spots. Only family would know about." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My whole body felt like someone had poured gasoline on my blood. 3 years. For 3 whole years, while Becky played the role of the sister who gets to use the cabin because we're family, she had secretly turned my property into her personal cash machine. "How long have you known, Mom?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Just yesterday, I swear. When you changed the code," Becky panicked. She started sending me messages begging to get the old code back, saying she had accidentally booked it for some friends. I got suspicious, looked up the app, and there it all was. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Friends, huh? Or paying customers? $350 a night, $2,000 a week, sometimes even $2,500 if it was a holiday weekend. She booked at least 2 full weeks each month." I sat down, heart pounding with anger. That cabin wasn't just a vacation spot, it was a gift I gave my parents after all their years of hard work, when they couldn't afford one on their own. I never regretted the money, never the effort. And Becky? She shamelessly profited off my kindness. By noon, I got a message from Becky's husband, Derek. "Ella, I'm begging you. Becky's a mess right now. We've been struggling these past few months, drowning in debt. If you just unlock the cabin and let us use it a little longer, I swear nothing will get out of hand." I didn't respond. But just a few hours later the doorbell rang. I glanced out the window. Becky and Derek were standing there. Nathan came up behind me. "Want me to get the door?" I shook my head. "No, I need to look them in the eye today." I opened the door. Becky looked completely different. Hair messy, dark circles under her eyes, clutching a stack of printed papers. Cancelled bookings from the rental app. "Ella, please, you have to let me explain." "I don't need to hear anything," I said coldly. "For 3 years you used my property without saying a word, all while playing the righteous big sister, calling me selfish, and even demanding I pay for those kids' phones." Derek cut in. "We didn't mean any harm, it's just we've been in debt." Becky thought since it was a family asset. "Family?" I let out a short laugh. "Don't say that word to me again. I've never been part of the family you all talk about," Becky cried. Tears fell, but they had no effect on me anymore. "But you don't understand. Paul's hours got cut and we still have to pay for the kids' schooling." Yet you still had money to rent a nice house, buy an SUV, go to Disneyland 3 times a year. I saw it all on social media. You're living beyond your means. And then turning to family to bail you out? She went quiet. I continued. Starting today, the cabin is on full lockdown. Only my parents and I have the access code. I've changed every lock, installed cameras, and hired someone to inspect the place weekly. If any of you show up there again, I'll call the police. Derek flinched. You're serious? Dead serious. And if I find out you're still illegally renting it out, I will sue. Every dollar made over the last 3 years. I have the right to demand compensation, plus interest and penalties for property rights violations. Becky choked out. Ella, I'm sorry. Too late. Once trust is broken, no words can fix it. I slammed the door before they could say anything else. That night, I called my parents. My dad was silent for a long time after I told them Becky and Derek had shown up. I'm so disappointed, not just because of what Becky did, but because I believed my kids still had some decency left. My mom's voice trembled. I used to think that love alone could prevent things like this, but now I see love can't be an excuse for someone to walk all over someone else. I held the phone, my hands ice cold. I never wanted the family to fall apart, but if maintaining a relationship meant being used, insulted, and treated like an endless wallet, then maybe it should have fallen apart a long time ago. And I knew one thing for sure. The truth was only just beginning to come out. I thought after Becky came to my house, crying and begging, they would be ashamed enough to back off. But I was wrong. Not just wrong, but foolish to believe that people like them knew when to stop. 4 days after that confrontation, on a quiet Friday evening, Nathan and I were having dinner with his family in Napa when my phone started buzzing non-stop. I didn't bother checking at first, assuming it was some ad notification. But when Nathan glanced at the screen, his expression changed completely. Ella, you need to see this. I grabbed the phone, more than 20 missed calls from the same number, unsaved. A flood of messages, mostly from my mom and some unknown numbers. But what made my skin go numb was a notification from the cabin's security system. Unusual movement detected. Main camera reports intrusion. I opened the security app. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the footage. The gate had been broken. A gray SUV was parked right at the entrance. Then the image came into focus. Derek and Paul, 2 men I used to call brothers-in-law, were using a metal cutter to break the gate lock in broad daylight, like common thieves. I nearly screamed in the middle of dinner. They broke in? They actually broke into the cabin. Nathan immediately called the property manager, his name was Brent, who lived nearby, and was hired to monitor the place regularly. Brent said he'd already seen the alert, had called the local sheriff's department, and that officers were on their way. I left the dinner table, my heart racing, ears ringing with rage. An hour later, Brent called back. The police got there in time. The 2 guys had broken the front door and were trying to open the back storage when they were caught on the spot. They tried to claim they were family and had usage rights, but once I showed the video and the ownership papers, the officers didn't say another word. They just cuffed them right there in the yard. Did they resist? I asked, my voice trembling with anger. Derek yelled, and Paul. He threatened to smash his bitch sister-in-law's face in, his exact words. Right in front of the police. I stood frozen. The next day, I went to the police station to confirm the incident and file charges. I brought everything, the deed, the transfer documents from my parents, the security footage, and even Derek's previous messages begging for access. The officer on duty, a woman named Ramirez, flipped through the paperwork and nodded. This is enough. These 2 are being held on 3 charges: unlawful entry, property damage, and personal threat. Are they eligible for bail? Yes, but it's the weekend, so processing will be slow. Honestly, they're a mess right now, and their wives don't have the money for bail. We suspect this wasn't the first time they've used that cabin to make money. I stayed quiet. A slow burning fury rolled in my chest. I looked her in the eye. I want to press charges, no compromise, no forgiveness, no withdrawal. Understood. We'll be in touch if more evidence is needed. That night, my mom called, crying. Ella, can't you let this go? They're family. Mom, this wasn't an accident. They brought tools, broke locks, and forced their way into my property like criminals. They threatened to kill me. Do you understand that? But Becky's falling apart and the kids don't know anything. Now their dads are in jail. That's the consequence of their actions. No one forced them to do it. They chose this path. Please don't plead for them. I heard her sobbing on the other end. My dad spoke just one sentence, slowly and heavily. If you forgive them this time, you'll make yourself a victim forever. I sat still by the window, watching the streetlights flicker like they were about to go out. My heart didn't go cold. It was burning. I had had enough. Enough of so-called family love, used like a chain or a club to beat others without shame. They thought I was weak. They thought I'd cave. They forgot I locked that gate not just with a code, but with years of clarity earned through suffering. I swore there would be no room for mercy. I was mentally prepared for a long legal battle. Paperwork, lawyers, courtrooms, and a string of hearings that smelled like gunpowder. But what arrived by express mail to my office on a cold, rainy Wednesday morning left me speechless for nearly a full minute. A white envelope, delivered by priority service, addressed to me. Labeled, "Personal documents, please open privately." Inside was a handwritten letter and a check for $5,000. Signed by Derek and Paul. I collapsed into my chair, reading line by line with cold, shaking hands. The letter was written clearly, without flourish or excuses. And what shocked me most was, it was sincere. Ella, we know we crossed the line. There's no excuse for breaking in, destroying property, and threatening a family member. We lost control. And the price we're paying is fair. This is a partial payment to cover the damages. If more is needed, we will send it. We ask that you consider dropping the charges. Not for forgiveness, but so everyone can return to a normal life. We're willing to sign any terms including no contact, no approach, and complete forfeiture of any access to the cabin. Once again, we are sorry. I didn't know whether to be angry or laugh. My emotions splintered, twisting between relief and disgust. It wasn't until I sat down for dinner with Nathan that I regained a bit of clarity. I think they're afraid of losing their jobs, I said, pushing the letter toward him. Paul has a sensitive security clearance. A criminal charge would cost him everything. Nathan nodded, finished reading the letter, then looked up. They didn't write to you out of remorse. They wrote because they're desperate. I gave a bitter smile. At least this time, they managed to write complete sentences and actually sign their names. The next day, I met with my attorney Ms. Catherine Shaw, who had been following the case closely since I filed the complaint. I handed her the letter and the check. She read it slowly, then let out a long sigh. Honestly, this is a chance to end everything cleanly. If you agree, I'll draft a civil agreement, which will clearly state, no contact in any form. No approaching or entering any of your properties. No claim of usage rights. No future disputes. And if any terms are violated, you have the right to sue immediately, with no prior warning. Can I still keep the money they sent? I asked. My voice low. Of course. That amount is restitution, and if they agree to sign this document, I suggest requesting a final payment. If repair costs exceed $5,000. I nodded, feeling heavy, yet seeing a faint light at the end of the tunnel. 4 days later, another check for $2,500 arrived. This time from the credit union where Paul worked. No one had to tell me. I knew it was Paul who arranged it. Along with the check was a message from their attorney, confirming both Derek and Paul had agreed to sign the civil agreement without modifying any terms. My attorney, Ms. Shaw, sent me the final draft to review and scheduled the official signing. I read the agreement over and over again. All parties agree to no communication or contact, direct or indirect. No one other than Ella or an authorized representative may enter the property located at. The offending parties confirm full compensation has been made and waive any right to reimbursement, litigation, or future civil claims. If any party violates this agreement, legal action will be taken immediately. When I signed it, a strange feeling filled my chest, like cutting out a hardened tumor. It hurt, but it healed. That afternoon, while I sat alone on the balcony watching the sunset paint the sky red, my mom called. I knew she would ask about it. I hesitated, then picked up. They've signed. I've agreed not to press charges. But don't expect us to go back to the way things were. My mother's voice was as faint as a breeze. I understand. I just hope you don't carry hatred in your heart forever. I'm not carrying hatred, I'm carrying boundaries. I hung up, then closed my eyes. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Real peace. Not fake, not forced. And I knew, from now on, my life would have no room for the old kind of forgiveness. The following Monday, I signed the final legal agreement in Catherine Shaw's office. The room was so quiet I could hear the pen scratch across the paper, each stroke like driving a nail into a door that was slowly, permanently, closing. Outside, the sky was gray and damp, but inside, I felt a strange lightness. Not because I had forgiven, and not because justice had fully prevailed, I simply wanted the fight to end, so I could move forward without carrying the past like a weight. The agreement was nearly 20 pages long, carefully outlining every clause like a life or death contract between people who were once family. Nathan and I signed, Catherine signed, the other side, Derek, Paul, Becky and Lauren, had signed over the weekend. The agreement clearly stated, none of them may contact me or Nathan, in any form. If communication is necessary for legal or property matters, it must go through legal intermediaries. They are forbidden from coming within 300 feet of my home or workplace. All usage rights and access to the cabin are permanently revoked. Previous rental income will not be reclaimed, unless tax violations are discovered, in which case they bear full legal responsibility. The final clause made me close my eyes for a few seconds before signing. I could no longer sue them for anything that had already happened. In exchange, I kept the full $7,500 compensation, and had guaranteed safety going forward. After all the paperwork was complete, Catherine closed the file, her eyes serious but filled with empathy. Ella, you did the right thing. Truly. This isn't weakness or letting go. It's control. It's reclaiming your agency. I nodded, said nothing. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to act strong. I just wanted to go home, make a hot cup of tea, turn on some soft jazz and forget everything. That afternoon I drove up to the cabin one last time, not to check on it, but to close the chapter with my own hands. On the way, I didn't play any music, just let the wind through the windows carry my thoughts. The house was still peaceful, tucked beneath rows of green pines. Brent, the property manager, had replaced all the locks as requested, rechecked the camera system, and sent me a list of minor replacements needed over the next year. Nothing serious. The house stood strong as the day I bought it, only now it was no longer stained by the greed of relatives. I walked around the yard, ran my fingers along the railings, the stepping stones Nathan and I had laid 3 years ago. Each corner of the house reminded me of my parents, of the times we sat drinking coffee, playing cards, watching the snowfall. Some memories are still beautiful, still pure, still intact, even if the people in them no longer are. Before I left, I hung a small wooden sign on the door that Brent had engraved at my request. Private property, authorized persons only. Any trespassing will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. A reminder, a statement, a boundary. That evening, in the living room, bathed in warm yellow light, Nathan handed me a glass of wine. I didn't drink. I simply held his hand, silent. You done, right? He asked, his eyes fixed on me, waiting for confirmation. I nodded. It's done. From now on, I'm no longer the one staying silent out of fear of conflict. I no longer live to please those who will never appreciate me. Nathan smiled, his smile carrying a sense of release. He hugged me, and for the first time in months, I felt like I no longer had to fight just to survive. I don't know if the future will bring Becky and Lauren back, whether indirectly through my parents or through some emotional game. But one thing I know for sure. I've locked that door, both legally and in my heart. I don't need them. I don't owe them. And I won't let them hurt me again. It's over. Not because I forgave, but because I took back my life. My story isn't just about a cabin being exploited. It's about the journey to reclaim ownership of my life after years of being dismissed and manipulated by my own family. Sometimes, boundaries aren't built with soft words but with law, determination, and doors that must be locked forever. Forgiveness doesn't mean continuing to endure. And love, if not accompanied by respect, is merely an excuse for others to legally violate you. What do you think of Ella's decision? Was she too harsh, or was it the only way to protect herself? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more compelling real-life family stories.